Hello guys, it's Alex here, and today we're gonna show the best war offense teams in the game. At number 10 we have Nightstalkers. Nightstalkers are a great team everywhere. They are primarily raids, but they are awesome in war. One great thing that they have here is the speed stat that they gain. Gain plus 20% speed stat if they are with Man-Think. That usually when you want to replace someone, you want to replace Moon Knight from this team. But I still have him, he's nice. This team demolishes Orkis, and Orkis is a team that many people have on defense. They're decent, they're flexible, they can take out some other things. They can take out like Annihilators, Odin, Doom, which is a great war defense that I have, and you wouldn't expect them to work there, but they can, and it's crazy because they take out like a team that's similar value of them, Annihilators, plus Odin, plus Doom, that in this specific comp it's very tricky, and they cannot say they stop Liberty and they stop Mighty Avengers, so definitely Nightstalkers are a team to consider and to build for war offense, especially like Blade and Oath and Agatha. Yeah. At number 9 we have Vigilante. Vigilante are another great team that are very nice everywhere. And the only downside with them is you cannot hybridize them. You need to use a full team because they have many things on their kits that say on offense needs 4 Vigilante allies, and even this here 4 Vigilante. He needs 4 Vigilante. Soap speed, and even the Rebel Modern has this. If he has 4 Vigilante allies, he can stunt and safeguard on spawn. Vigilante cannot gain bleed, and on offense lowers the damage of enemies vulnerable. So they're designed, they're both meant to use for offense and the whole team together. They do some great stuff, stopping revive, stopping Cosmic Ghost Rider from working, and then they can take out an Astral Cosmic Ghost Rider that used to be a problem for many people because Astral is kinda easily countered, but Cosmic Ghost Rider stops many of the counters that go there. Vigilante demolishes that very, very easily. They're nice, they can take out many other teams, and they're definitely valuable to have on war offense. At number 8 we have Max for Money. Max for Money have fallen a lot on the list. Even getting Holman Logan to 3 diamonds almost didn't make any difference at all, very, very little. And I know this team can take out like an absolute A-force if you throw in a controller that has more focus than Allman Logan. That can be many people. Can be Gore, I think. Can be Polaris. Can be Taskmaster if you have him a skirmisher. So you have some options there. I haven't gotten this to work properly. It's not a primary use that I have from them. Usually Absolute A-Force are very heavily hybridized, and I'm sure they cannot take out every hybrid there is of them, but they can take out some. There can be a cleanup for that. They can take out many B-tier teams, like Annihilators, like any team that is not a war team, usually they can work, like Starjammers or something like this. Even like Null Hive Mind, if there's no Mephisto there, they can work very well. So definitely still have their uses and they're very nice, and Norman Logan is a great character. But number 8 now. At number 7 we have Undying. Very often I just have Ares with them saved, but another thing about Undying is they can be flexible and you can use, like, for example, Apocalypse with them or even Mephisto. You can do many things. They will introduce a new Undying member, so they won't lose their value long term. Definitely a team to take out many things. Zombie Scarlet Witch shopping speed bar generation is very, very nice, so that you can stop like Kahoris, but as the 4 pieces are not amazing in countering Absolute A-Force, especially if you hybridize them. But having a team with Absolute A-Force and Super Scroll, that's very common. And having Zombie Scarlet Witch stopping the speed bar from both is very, very nice. They're great. They're very nice to have. They can do great things. Some situations they can take out some awesome teams if you hybridize them well. At number 6 we have Astral. Astral I used to have on defense for a long time. I may still put them there. This is a list of what would be the 10 best war offense teams in the game for the beginner maybe, or to know what you do. Maybe you want to throw a couple of those teams on defense. Astral especially, if you throw them on defense maybe with Cosmic Ghost Rider, but now as I said Vigilante counters that, or with America Chavez adjacent to Shadow King and Ancient One. It can be nice. It's not bad to have them on defense, but they are very nice to have on offense also. And with Quasar, they can take out Professor Xavier team, so that's a big reason to throw them on offense again, and that's why they are this high on the list now. At number 5, you have. This needs to be a hybrid to be this high, like Cabal and Apocalypse, and either Kang to take out like Astral teams that don't have America Chavez or a Cosmic Ghost Rider in them, just straight Astral, or you can throw in Ultimus instead of Kang, and this can work nicely, but not the best. Is not the best option. It's a little bit RNG based against some Absolute A-Force teams, even with Super Scroll or even with Super Scroll and Odin. So this is a Absolute A-Force hybrids are a tricky team still to beat, and a Cabal Apocalypse can provide a solution for that. Maybe not the best solution we have, but they are a very solid Astral counter if you use Kang instead of Ultimus. So they're flexible and they deserve to be this high on the list. At number 4 we have Mighty Avengers. This team is nice. They have a good thing on their kit that allows them to do many counters that you wouldn't expect, which is here on Hercules kit, which says if this character has 3 or 4 mystic enemies in war offenses again, it will fill speed bar of self and Mighty Avengers allies by 20%. So if there is a team with like Mephisto, Odin and Cosmic Ghost Rider, or I don't know, like Kahori, Doctor Strange, there are many mystic characters that it's easy to throw 3 of them on a team that maybe you hybridize them or whatever, and if there are 3, then you gain a 20% speed advantage, speed bar, and many times this will allow you to do some counters that you wouldn't expect. Like it was a team with Mephisto, Odin, Cosmic Ghost Rider, and 2 Alpha Flight, which was very, very tricky to beat with many other teams that we had in the game, but it's basically the best tools. There was no Xavier back then. The best tools used on a team, and because you gain the 20% speed bar advantage at the beginning, you can demolish that. You can take out many Mephisto teams, especially if there are 3 mystic enemies, like for example with Nightstalkers that are all mystic. They have some solid uses. Otherwise, they can take out all the B, C tiers war teams, like if you find like a massive, like 1.2 million charge damage, you can throw that. They're relegated a little bit to that because they're a bit weird in how they work and very specific in what they can do and a little bit tricky. But because they have this great thing that with a 20% speed bar and they're flexible and very nice, besides that, they're not the best in war offense, but they're like the third, fourth best. They're nice, they're great, they're a bit of a luxury, but since you had to build like two of those guys for raids, you can build the other ones a little bit and have a very nice war team. The problem with them, they need to be all 5 members and they need to survive because your abilities need to have, many of your abilities need to have 4 Mighty Avengers alive to do stuff. So if you have, for example, here, Hercules makes you steal buffs as long as your whole team is alive. When some people die, they don't. I don't know why it's not shown here, but in with Scarlet Witch proper, I think for her to decay defense ups, she needs to have 4 like here Falcon. If there are 4 Mighty Avengers allies alive, so the whole team, it fills speed bar for another 20% that allows you usually to lap the opponents. Here it is. No, it's a basic. Yeah. This character has 3 or more Mighty Avengers allies, reduces the duration of the defense up, which is very nice. So it's annoying because, or here you need to have 3 Mighty Avengers. This team needs to survive some initial hits, maybe, if you want to take out a very strong team. So they're not the best. Like they struggle a lot against Absolute Force, and I wouldn't use this counter at all, unless it's like the last thing you have to use it, because there is a small chance this can work, or unless you kill some members. But they can take out some great teams, as I said, with 3 mystics on them. At number 3, we have Absolute A-Force. This is more like for science, or like to be technically correct, because this team is most of the time on defense. They're very nice on offense. They should be somewhere here on the list, and maybe some people will start throwing them again on offense, or you want to try this. If you want to build the best war teams, Absolute A-Force is one of them, so they had to make the list here. But realistically speaking, most people have them on defense and replace at minimum Ironheart, most of the time also Wasp, and they do some crazy things here. You can even try to do something with Xavier here, or with Odin, or with Mephisto, or with Null, or with Super Skrull, or like Dormammu and Super Skrull. They can be tricky to beat, as I said, like basically almost everyone before that on the list struggles a lot here. And the weird thing is they beat the Mirror Man, but they're still on defense, because this can be tricky if everyone is very big, or a little bit tricky. Usually you win. And then you hybridize the team a lot, and then the mirror match doesn't work, and many teams doesn't work. I think what they did with this team ruined war, basically, because you have the 3-piece here that can be hybridized to a crazy degree and ruin war for many people, because it needs very specific counters to beat them. And you can still like change the things about. I'm all for like theory crafting and building teams, and I don't like this specific teams that you need to have 4 or 5 members, like a Vigilante or Mighty Avengers even. I I don't hate them in all situations, but usually I'm not a big fan of them. The flip side is those here, absolute A force. Like maybe they needed to put a couple of things from the 3 piece on Wasp and on Ironheart, or at least on Wasp, so you can put one a crazy plug and play character, not 2. Like people throw, for example, now Mephisto and Xavier in this team. It's not very nice. Like this team had their place in the spotlight for a long time, and yeah, Quasar counters them to a good degree, like especially Miss Marvel Classic, which can be very nice. Many people saw Kahori Speed Bar. So maybe they will lose a great counter, and we throw them on offense again, and we get to have fun with them. They kind of made it not very rewarding to use a full team. It's very easy to hybridize them, and just the power is on 3 members from this team. A little bit on Wasp, but Wasp is just a big damage dealer to a big degree, not too much like mechanically that those 3 people do. At number 2 we have Liberty. Liberty used to be the best war team that beats everything until they introduced Xavier, basically. They can take out some Xavier comps if you use a Mephisto with them and the ones don't have Null to protect Xavier from that. This can be a nice solution. So they're still up there and they're amazing, and they can take out like most of crazy absolute A-Force counters. As I said, you can hybridize them a little bit, throw like a Mephisto with them. In some situations, you may want to use like a Ultimus because they put out a lot of taunts and Ultimus gets a lot of speed bar. Even like something like Null. They're not the best at clear everything anymore, even if you bring them to G20, but they're still one of the best teams to have in war and will have some longevity, and they are nice and crucible, they can do some stuff. Definitely a team that I would rush for war, and they're basically the best straight war team because, yes, I'm showing a team here, but basically this is a Quasar, so like Quasar is the best character here. Quasar is the solution to Xavier, the best solution we have usually. If they don't have an older, in many cases, and maybe even not a Mephisto, in many cases you can go with like absolute, with a Liberty and Mephisto of your own, and you can beat them. But Quasar plus fast characters like Black Cat could make this list, Kang could go in there, Apocalypse is mostly there if they have someone like a Gladiator, so they have Safeguard plus Taunt on Spawn, so you have a Apocalypse there to stop the Safeguard on Spawn, and then your Songbird will go first and flip that, and then you can target Xavier from then on, and you can stun him with Storm Special. Maybe even like kill him then with a Quasar ability. So this can also work on Mephisto teams because a Quasar stops his speed stat, so Mephisto will take a while to use to activate his battlefield effect, or on some Odin teams because they will go before Odin, they can flip taunts, they can target Odin and do a lot of damage and kill him before he uses his special. So there are some combination of fast stat characters plus a like Red Hulk is a fast stat character, but I don't know how much he can fit in there. He can do Terminator 1, this can be nice. So some combination of those with Quasar, that's a big boss and the best character here that makes all things happen because he has some great things on his kit. So here on Spawn applies defense up and immunity for 2 turns to his allies, so you cannot stun them on Spawn. Then he gains immunity, he heals himself, he reduces speed bar from the opponents when so he works with exposed, a reduced barrier, give safeguard to himself at least, but mostly this here, like this character's health is more than 50%, enemies cannot feel speed bar for themselves or allies. These characters allies cannot get exhausted. The focus on damage of this character and all allies can only be reduced by offense down, so no Cosmic Ghost Rider does nothing. Enemies cannot gain immunity. And the speed stat of all characters, this is also your characters, so be wary if you use him with your own Mephisto, because your Mephisto will go very slow. The speed of all characters can only be altered by positive and negative effects. So you stop speed stats from a character, for example, an opponent's null, and because he has a 129, I think, speed stat, and there are some, and Xavier is 127, I believe, and the null is the same, and Odin I think is 128. You can go in with characters that have faster speed than that, like Songbird I think is 132, and then Storm and Storm I think is 130 or 131, and Jean Grey is 130. You have Black Cat at 132. That's very annoying because if you use her with Songbird, you kinda want Songbird to go first, so flip the taunt on opponents and maybe their immunity. Or I think Quasar shows immunity, but you want to flip so you can stun trauma someone else, and many times as I've tried it, always my Songbird gets the conflict. Loses the conflict. So Black Cat goes first and doesn't stand who I want to, but this can be a solution. I've in situation when you don't want to use Apocalypse with them, I used Kang, and Kang is very nice. If they don't stop speed bar, he can give you 5% speed bar on Spawn. He puts out slow, he does damage. Mostly it's about damage, basically. Like you do damage, you control them, you can stun Xavier. You don't want to use ultimates with Xavier, and you have Storm doing great ability with her special, her opening ability. Even Quasar can do a special and call in assist, which can do a lot of damage. And let's show some honorable mentions just to fill up like the 14 war offensive. I think we need to mention those guys. I don't have them on war offense, I use them on war defense, a hybrid of them, but they're an amazing war team. And of course those guys here, I believe they're probably gonna end up on defense, especially hybrid with the 3 new ones. Maybe with Thing can go with Mighty Avengers, with new Avengers and do something on war, having better stats. But I don't expect them to crack the top 10. Probably we will have something like this, maybe even with Xavier. We need to see the team, of course, see how it will play out in action, or like with a Null in there, or even like an Odin in some situations, or we'll see. We need to see the team on practice, how this will play out, but definitely a massive war team. And if you haven't built other teams on the list because you're a beginner, you build this team because they will be the best in arena, which will give you power cores to do other stuff, and they will be top 10 in war, probably. Then we can mention Thunderbolts. To some degree, they deserve a nod because Songbird is nice and they can be an important piece to counter Xavier teams. If you use her with Quasar, of course, no, just the third team here is not very good, and it's very bad design, especially because this is a team that you kind of want to take pieces out of them, like to use Songbird somewhere else, or even like Taskmaster with a Underworld if you have them built, because they have many stuff on the kits. Again, needs to have 4 more Thunderbolt allies. This is in raids. Needs to have 4 more Thunderbolt allies. Still need to have 4 more Thunderbolts to put drama. Need to have 4 more Thunderbolt to protect your team from ability block or drama. And maybe even her will have something. Raids are most of them, but reduces duration of heal block if there are 4 more Thunderbolt allies. This can be a nice thing. You can take out like a straight annihilators with them. You can use pieces, as I said, differently, like Taskmaster has a very nice damage stat. As I said, you can use him as plug and play with a Max for money if you want to take out absolute A for him. I haven't practiced this too much to make it very successful. But they can be a nice like 5-piece if you are not facing Xaviers and you don't have many of the other teams built, because you need to build them here, Thunderbolts for raids. Yes, you can use them on war offense and they can do some cool stuff. Orkis can be great on war offense, or you could replace her and put Mysterion here and have a late death deck with Weapon X. If you want to fill 14 teams and you have Weapon X built from the past. So Orkis, yes, they can be nice. This can be a team that takes out Astral, but again, you want to use Storm on a different team to take out Xavier in some situations. And I also mentioned this here more as plug and play. Maybe you're going to have Mephisto as plug and play on offense or on null. You can use something like this. This can win against many absolute A-Force teams, but it's not extremely reliable. Maybe with the 7-star on null it will be. You can use this from war defense, and this can be nice. You can use pieces of that in some ways, because eventually we can get Xavier and maybe you want to have a null protecting them. So it's not really a straight team, but I think I've shown like very solutions. You can use this as a straight team or in different ways as plug and play. They can take out, like for example, if you are seeing in a war like Mephisto and Orkis. You can even not, you don't need to use Mephisto here. You can use like a Venom, and this team will demolish it, and it's nice. So there you have it, guys. I hope this has been helpful. You can suggest other war offense teams if I don't have them in mind, or what you're using, or how you're doing this with if some teams that I've shown are better on defense, and I'll make a war defense video after that.